With us this morning to review the papers, the entrepreneur Kate Hardcastle and the editor-in-chief of National World Cities, Nancy Fielder. Lovely to see both of you. Really hope you're well and getting ready for Christmas. But of course, we've got to talk about the news. So let's do the depressing stuff first, shall we? Kate, to you first, the front of the Express. And I find this one a fascinating one, simply because their headline, Nurses, Talk to Us, Rishi, we don't want to break the bank. I mean, sounds like the Express is quite supportive of the nurses.
Not just that, I think absolutely put in a position from Pat Cullen, who's leading these negotiations, to say, actually, we want to compromise. We want to be seen as being reasonable. We don't want to break the bank. Last week, we heard from the Health Minister talking about how this potential pay increase would cost £1,000 of every household. But that's been fact-checked again, and there's a lot of problems with that equation. It's not necessarily the case. So I think there was very much need for an important message to go out that showed one of reason and rationale. Remember as well, these strikes are not just about pay. They are about working conditions. And we have nurses on the front line that have had to go through 3 years now nearly of the pandemic, managing to be able to keep patients under care, under the watchful eye. Excuse me, I'm going to cough. And I think, just an incredibly challenging situation. So we look like here we've got the Express putting forward this view that seems to be reasonable. Look, this is about compromise. Let's get around the table.
Kate, do you want to go and get yourself a glass of water? It's absolutely fine. Why don't you go do that and I'll have a chat with Nancy. And of course, it is a related story. All of the papers going very, very big on the problems within the health service at the moment. But this one, when I saw this yesterday, politicians visiting hospitals, this is the front of the Metro, it never tends to go well, and perhaps never less so than at the time of major strikes across the industry.
That is so true. I mean, he went in for what the Metro describes as a photo op and ended up sitting with a mom of a young girl with cystic fibrosis who basically just told the health secretary what the state of the NHS is. And the condition critical is sadly a reflection of the service, not just patients in it. And so she was talking about how her daughter regularly needs treatment, is regularly put back. And she says she just wants to give all the nurses a massive hug because they're doing an incredible job. Nobody's listening to them, and actually the government's letting everybody down here. I mean, I think fundamentally we've got to remember nobody ever wants to go on strike. Nobody wants less money. And for the government not even to be talking, and for a mom to really be the voice of the nation here, saying, look, she sees it firsthand, her daughter experiences it, and something needs to be done because it isn't the nurses who are in the wrong here or the ambulance workers.
Well, like all the signs that we are getting from both the nurses' end of the negotiations, or the lack thereof, and from the government, is that this one is going to run for a while yet. Kate, oh, you're feeling slightly better now. Good. Let's go to the FT, and this is fantastic. Space Karen, as I discovered, Elon Musk has been christened by some on his own website. This is about the vote that he put up yesterday and whether or not he's going to remain as CEO.
Absolutely. It's absolutely fascinating what's happening on Twitter. And Elon ran this trial last night, this survey to see from the users whether he should carry on as CEO. Now, I'm going to put a bit of context in here. Carry on as CEO, that doesn't mean that he'd be stepping away completely from Twitter. And I imagine that we would quite well see Mr. Musk completely being part of the infrastructure and being very visible and audible, no matter whether he's in the position of CEO or another chair or other position that he took. That said, he said he would abide by the decision of the survey, which was 57.5% of the Twitter users, millions of users. I think just to put some balance in here, it does seem like he has a new toy. It does seem like it's become a sandbox. We have had so much scrutiny of what he's done since he's been there. But before then, the city really believed in him. He was a prominent entrepreneur. Here he is carrying the kitchen sinking because he was saying, look, it's all the cash I've got and the kitchen sink to get Twitter. Tried to back out of the deal once. But, if you remember his business accolades before this, with Tesla, with the Boring Company, with indeed the work that he's done at SpaceX, he has got quite the CV. So I'm still waiting to see that perhaps when the fascination, maybe when the the kind of boy-like tendencies he's got to use this as his own sandbox, even out, maybe if you just step away a little, what this might remedy to become.
Yeah, the interesting bit to me, of course, is when Elon Musk points out that only those who pay for their tick will be allowed to vote in those polls in future. I wonder why that might be. Let's stick with the front of the FT, Nancy, and this again is the Rwanda ruling. A big victory, I have to say, for the government.
Well, it is a big victory, but it isn't over, and it isn't a complete victory.
Indeed.
So this is going to run and run. I suspect it will be months, if not years, before we actually see anybody playing to Rwanda, if we see anybody on a plane to Rwanda. And this isn't that they can just... So the idea is you put people off risking their lives in boats by saying they're going to go straight to Rwanda. This is not what the judges said. When they get here, every single case needs to be individually looked at. Indeed, by Suella Braverman, including the ones that she already tried to put on a plane. This is not cheap. This is not a quick deterrent. And the only other similar case that's been internationally that's already tried a similar route was Israel, and actually it was abandoned after not very long at all. So, I mean, this looks like a victory. I don't think this is the end of it, and I think it's more likely at this point that we get nobody to Rwanda at all. And human rights campaigners would say that's a good thing, because it's a mad policy. It's trying to crack a problem with a sledgehammer that really, really isn't going to solve it. It looks like PR spin, because the government will look so bad if it fails. And immigration is not going to be solved or even eased by this, even if it does go ahead. Even if it does go ahead.
Yeah, I think, as you suggest, I think that one has a little bit to run in as well. Kate, let's go to the front of the Star. And I mean, the Star is describing Jeremy Clarkson as having apologised. I read that tweet yesterday. I read it, and to be fair, if that's an apology, I've apologised profusely on a few occasions where I probably shouldn't have. I mean, it was through gritted teeth, if anything.
You're completely right. We have here a situation that is running and running, and yet seems to be presented that an apology has been made. Far from it. That was not an apology at all. In fact, I think the tweet actually starts to something like, oh dear, almost like this sarcasm of, oh, silly me, I seem to have put my foot in it. I was making a reference to a piece of television, I think it was Game of Thrones or something. And that's what all this was about. Absolutely abhorrent comment, quite rightly being called out. And I really hope that future producers, editors of Mr. Clarkson really consider this moment. Has to be a line in the sand. Wherever you stand on the Harry and Meghan issue, this is absolutely unacceptable. It's bullying, it's sexist, it's misogynist, it's absolutely awful. Many classes racist. I just do not understand how anyone can say yes, an apology's been made. I think everyone's still waiting for it.
Kate, I wonder if you want to kind of weigh in this one as well, because I think, as a bloke in some of these discussions, I do feel kind of adjacent to what it must feel like to be on the receiving end. Because do you know what? I get stuff like that quite a bit in my Twitter mentions and the rest of it. It's not in a national publication. It's not being written by Jeremy Clarkson. That I get. But there is an awful lot of invective out there these days. So, what is your view of precisely where Clarkson went wrong in this column about Meghan Markle? Would you have allowed it in one of yours? Sorry, Nancy, I'm so sorry. Sorry, Nancy.
Not a chance. I mean, this is a man who has got a history of being misogynistic, a history of using this particular woman, and we've just seen how it's impacted her. He said that he doesn't believe anything that happens impacts her, that she's kind of this piece of rock that has no feelings, and yet he's been given this huge platform to attack her, to say absolutely evil things that nobody should say about another human being. Guess what? He's getting more publicity from it.
Nancy, let's return to that one next time. Maybe we'll have a little bit longer of a discussion on it. We have 5 seconds to go, so I'll say goodbye for now, and we'll see you same time next hour.